Oh, he's back.
Is this still bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crap. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us tonight. I will be your host, Centurion 1307. Invader has the night off from TXR. He had something he had to get taken care of. And tonight we have our guest D. So we'll just start off there. How you doing tonight, D?
Doing pretty good. I'm happy to join you guys. Happy to be here. Let's talk all things. All good. Thanks.
Right on. And we'll bring up Shockley next. How you doing, Shockley? Playing anything? Doing anything? How's everything with you?
Pretty good. Yeah, just waiting for Tears of the Kingdom to come out. Just been getting back into other Resident Evil games. Hadn't had the heart to try Redfall, but from what people have said, I downloaded it, but they're just like, from what I've seen, I maybe shouldn't waste my time until they decide to. I don't know what they can fix, but we'll see.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah, I'll take some of the impressions. So
it's not as bad as people like. I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to bring it up yet. But dude, I have actually caught reviewers lying, and at this point, I really feel like we have gone from clickbait to what I am calling click hate, because hate sells, and I'm just. Let's just say, dude, that game is not perfect by any means. I am not going to sit here and say that this is like, the best thing since sliced bread for Xbox. But at the same time, it is not a raging dumpster fire like it's being made out to be. And like, I really do feel like that there has been a narrative that has been totally just at this point been taken to town on this game. But we'll get into that later. Right. Crusader, how you doing? Still shaving? I could barely hear you. You all right?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to do some mixing then, because I'm trying a different headset.
No problem. Well, we can hear you now. It just sounds like we're getting ready to land a space shuttle, but it's better than the original sound.
Yeah, I'm with phone in zone. I'm trying to get them to work on PC, so give me a moment.
No, you're fine. Sorry, everybody. Tonight's show is actually being done on StreamYard, so there's a little bit of a curve because everybody's used to like the amazing job that Invader does running Discord with OBS and the science and engineering of getting a show to run on those systems, and everything's on his computer. So tonight I'm using this on StreamYard. We'll move over to Dots. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Kind of kerfuffled that I'm suddenly here, but hey, I'm always welcome. I'm always happy to help you guys out if you need another person.
I mean, kerfluffled, man. That's how we roll, man. Don't know. It's like when the bat signal gets shot into the clouds.
Yeah, I don't get a choice. I was expecting, next. Actually, there is those rumors of a new Star Wars RTS. So this isn't entirely me in hibernation mode. I'm in ready mode. My body is ready for that when that happens. But no. I've been doing good. I've been playing a lot of Age of Wonders 4, which is, in layman's term, it's like Civ, but it's fantasy themed. And I put so many freaking hours into that game. You have no idea already.
Is that the one with the animals?
There are animals in it.
Maybe I'm thinking of a total different game then.
It's literally Civilization, like 4, 5, 6, whatever, but it's like fantasy themed. And the thing I like about it the most is that you get to create your own Civ. So you can be like, you can be a bunch of paladin goblins, or you could be like, you're a human wizard who's leading an army of halflings and using light magic. So you could literally pull like a Lord of the Rings. I think there's an achievement for that too, actually. But anyway, I've been digging so much time into that. It's been a blast, and it's not an RTS. It's a turn-based strategy, but I like those too. I'm not one over the other. I love them both, so I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Right on. Well, for me, I will at least just put it out there. I have been playing Dead Island 2, and I still don't know what the hell happened, but maybe it was everybody that was just like, do not touch Redfall. And I mean, if anybody knows me personally, you'll know I've got authority issues. And if you tell me not to do something, I am going to for sure do it. And I have been hooked, and I have already sank over 16 hours into Redfall.
So you're
Man.
doing everything, right? All this side quests and all that. 'Cause I heard the campaign was shorter. Not gonna lie, I was also spending a lot of time exploring and getting, loot here and there. So I get it.
Oh man, I'm all over the place on a world that has exploration and just kind of like poking around, seeing what they have to offer, and just the environment that they crafted.
Yeah.
All right.
Crusader, how
is
you
this
gotta-
better?
Yes. Okay.
All right. Let's
Let's
explain
go.
what I'm doing. I am
Well-
passing my headset through my Xbox Elite Series 2 controller through USB-C into my computer right now. The cable that comes with my headset that it splits into the mic and like audio separate, it appears to have bit the big one.
Oh.
And I tried to set up my Sony in zones, but I can tell that I need to download the software for them to tune the mic settings, because I could hear myself and it sounded terrible. And it doesn't sound like that on PlayStation. So I know I need to download the software on the PC to fix that.
Dude, I actually honestly, like with what Thimber was saying in the chat, I thought you were getting ready for Starfield and simulating doing the show from the Terra Nova space station in orbit.
Well, listen, maybe for the show that we do with the showcase, later that evening, maybe I will just put the headset on for that.
That's funny. But all right, I guess at this point we're ready to go. Let's dig into obviously the one topic that everybody keeps poking at, making fun at, whether you love it, hate it. There is now the next deadly sin in the world, and that is playing Redfall. So let's just start off with tonight's guest. Have you tried Redfall? Is it not your cup of tea? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Where do you stand on this very controversial release for Xbox and Bethesda?
I have tried it. No, I haven't spent much time, a little time on it. Maybe like a couple hours, 2.5-ish. Ever since I saw the announcement, I was into it because I was a little hyped for. I really liked what was it, Left 4 Dead back in the day, and then Back 4 Blood. So this is definitely right up my alley. My wife wanted to try it as well, so we're like, let's do co-op. Well, like, why not, right? I guess I would have had a different experience if it had just been me. It doesn't seem as fun, solo. Other people beg to differ. We had a nice time. If anything, there were a couple technical issues that pulled us out of the experience, like the screen tearing and some things freezing the teardrop. But honestly, like I said, it wasn't as bad as people make it out to be. Like I saw a bunch of reviews with like really dumb AI and vampires getting stuck anywhere, and that you could just melee while they were like floating right in front of your face. We never had that. It wasn't like very distracting. If anything, certain of the enemies a few of the enemies were too easy. But like it's an open world, so if you give us a little stuff to do and explore and all that, we'll do it. We took over the first safe house, a couple of bosses around the area. I think we stopped right after the helicopters mission. So like you said, it's not the dumpster fire that make it out to be. I see the potential there. I gotta give Arcane a lot of credit for going out of what they usually do and take a chance and a risk on a new IP. But EA just needed like a little more time in the oven, like a little extra TLC, it'll be fine. It's not probably going to be like a 10 out of 10 even then, right? But it can still have a nice redemption story. But, I do see us play it more and at least trying to beat the campaign with a couple of patches or so. So my first impression wasn't bad. I get both sides of the picture, but honestly, I did not hate it. So, I can only wait and see what they do next with it. And hopefully it'll be good enough to, actually have people come back around and maybe you can get a sequel. I don't know.
No, I totally agree that given enough time, Arcane and them would probably be able to really patch Redfall, fix the issues. Because let's face it, there is issues. Everybody's running into their own set of issues. Some of it's funny, other times you're just like, what the hell? Like that's like everybody brings up the AI. I'll be upfront. I feel like early in the game, I'm not sure if the AI was deliberately made stupid. Because as you progress through the game, get higher in levels and go to the different regions, it feels like the AI does become more aggressive. And I've had situations where in a battle, I had two guys chasing me around one side of a building, and I had no idea that the AI had another enemy coming back behind me on the other side of the building. They were basically flanking me, and I got shot in the back and died. But there's also other times where in fighting a specialized vampire, a drainer or whatever the hell it was called, where it basically sucks the blood out of you from a distance, the vampire got hung up on a polygon on a boat. And at that point, I was just like, well, shit, the advantage is mine now because he's now stuck to the boat. So I took full advantage of that. So there is definitely some issues there that need to be ironed out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what Crusader. How about, have you been playing Redfall at all?
I have not been playing Redfall. I'm actually kind of completely turned off from ever giving it a chance for a multitude of reasons, and one of them is a very personal thing. As like a person who likes to hunt achievements in games, I don't play games specifically for achievements, but I do like to hunt achievements in games and grow my gamer score. And like, there's like 17 gamer score achievements in the game, and that's just no. And so like, that is actually going to push me away from the game for at least for a while. But I watched all. I don't know if people know Charlie Moist Critical, Penguin Zero on YouTube. It's a rather large YouTuber streamer, has been for like a decade and a half now. And I watched his coverage of it, and then I went back and watched his entire live stream of him playing like 3-4 hours of the game. And I don't know if he got far enough in for the AI to get smarter, but the AI did not get smarter in his playthrough. And so I wanted to go through and I wanted to play Dishonored to see what like a game from Arcane from that long ago. Because I've played Prey, and Prey was really good, and the AI was quite good in Prey. But I wanted to see what AI that was like more, that should be more responsive, would be like in one of their in an Arcane older game. And the Dishonored is excellent. I'm really happy I rushed through that to play it before the show today. And it's just so weird to see so many core concepts of games being missed in Redfall. And I'm not talking about like them changing genres or things, but like just like the way that like co-op is handled, with progression not being carried over for specific people. Like what you earn does, but like mission progress and stuff doesn't. And that's just really weird to me. And just core like the AI problems that it had, and the fact that they tried to make an open world looter shooter. And as someone who very much enjoys loot driven games, I played like, I have like 2.2 thousand hours in Destiny 2. And I have like something like 700 hours in Diablo 3. The loot just seemed like the way structurally, so like it's been broken down, and like I've seen how everything works. It's just disappointing for like a loot driven thing. Like it's okay. And like that's the whole thing. Like a lot of these things are okay, but when you add them all on top of each other, it makes for a very bland just game. And when you have on top of that the weird online issues, like Xbox Live had all of those issues the day after it launched, and that took a lot of people. If you weren't already signed in before the issues started, you couldn't get into the servers for the game, and that sucks. It literally, I was hilarious. I was tracking. It took 32 hours for the first definitive problem with Xbox Live servers for it to become an issue with the game. And so I understand it coming in the 60s, and I understand it being a mixed game on Steam. I don't quite agree that it should be with Steam's like top 20 worst rated games of all time. That seems a bit far even for me, because like it's not fundamentally broken. Like the game actually plays, and it plays okay. And on Steam, I'll give them, they did one impressive thing with the PC version, and I'll give them credit for this. They implemented all three of the upscaler technologies. They implemented FSR2, the AMD one that works basically across any GPU that exists. They implemented DLSS 3, and it scales back to 2 if you are on a not 40 series card. And they implemented Intel's XeSS for Intel-based the Arc GPUs from Intel's line, and it's one of the only games that's ever implemented. I think it's the only game that may be out there that's implemented all 3, and so that's actually a like an actual pretty impressive thing that they did there. But like, there's just like other core concepts missing in the game. As someone who likes the games that it was trying to be an Arcane stylized version of, right? Because like the games that they have compared it to are Far Cry and Borderlands. I love Borderlands. I've played a lot of time into Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3. And Far Cry, I played a lot of Far Cry 3 on my PC in college, and I played quite a bit of Far Cry 4 very recently. I beat that game it's definitely within the last 12 months. And to see them saying like, yeah, this is because Arcane doesn't make they're like, they've never made like defined a genre. What they've done is they've always taken genres and kind of turned them into their own. Traditionally, it's been the immersive sim BioShock style games, but they make them very, very Arcane. Prey is very different from BioShock, but it has its elements in BioShock and System Shock. And this game was supposed to have its elements in Borderlands and Far Cry, and it just feels like a large miss. And I think that it's getting a lot more hate than it deserves because it's the first AAA game that Microsoft has launched since Halo Infinite. It's been like, what, 16, 17 months? Now, they've had some good releases in between then. They've had Hi-Fi Rush, which is, one of my top 5 games of all time. I loved Hi-Fi Rush. And they had Pentiment, which is on my backlog. But, like, it's not something that the masses are going to try to go out and play. And if Arcane if this game had been what their vision had truly been internally, because I can see what the vision for this game was. And I can tell you if that vision had been met, I would have been jumping for joy, because Borderlands with the Arcane style immersive sim stuff from Dishonored sounds sick. And it didn't hit that, and that's disappointing. And I think it gets a lot of hate onto it because of it now being part of the Xbox brand, and the Xbox brand not meeting some expectations that people have. And conversely, I think that it has impacted the Xbox brand a lot more than it should, because it's the first $70 game from Bethesda launching exclusively on Xbox, and that carries a lot of weight. It's also kind of appalling to hear that they had originally told us that this was coming out in summer of 2002. I can't imagine what we would have gotten in summer of 2022. Like, I can't imagine that there was a point in time where they thought it was going to be ready for summer of 2022. And you can also tell that this game comes from the era of ZeniMax, where ZeniMax was investing heavily into service games, and you can feel where the service elements of this were ripped out. In fact, we know there was at one point a shop, like a microtransaction shop in the game. We've seen the screenshots from testing, and that's been since removed. So you can tell that this game is also suffering from it being in the league of games that ZeniMax was trying to produce with 76 and one of the worst games of all time, Wolfenstein Youngbloods.
See, I'm glad you're touching on that, because a lot of people don't want to acknowledge the fact that this game was in production or development before Xbox bought Bethesda, and it came from the same leadership decisions that were behind Fallout 76. Yeah,
right.
I agree. But, and I think that at the end of the day, it came down to they wanted this. It was, do we cancel this game or do we release it? Because a lot of the problems would have taken years to fix because they are endemic to the actual systems in the game. And when you get down to that, it was probably better to release this game than to scrap 5 years of work from Arcane. That being said, I think it is wild that Microsoft made this the first $70 game that they released. That is wild.
There was a lot more marketing for this game than there was Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
And that's like. Yeah,
it's a bizarro world, because Hi-Fi Rush to me actually could have held a $70 price tag. That game's excellent, and it's like a 20-hour game. Like, it's not. I mean, I guess the 100% is like a 20-hour 100%. The game itself's like 8 to 10, but like we've had plenty of 8 to 10 $70 games that people freaking love. I fucking love Dead Space. It's 8 to 10 hour game. It's bizarro world to me that something as good as Hi-Fi Rush is being launched at one price and something as average as Redfall is being launched at another price. It's just so
he said that
foreign.
Well, I guess their mock interviews were saying they're like way
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah, I wasn't going to touch on a lot of stuff from the Phil Spencer interview about Redfall, but I guess we can specifically touch on the Redfall stuff here. That would make sense to talk about in the Redfall section. Whoever because people were freaking out that there's a thing, mock interviews. Yeah, all game companies do mock interviews for their games. That's just I figured that was more common knowledge than it was. Whoever they have doing their mock interviews internally, I'm not saying they need to be fired, but they need to never. Most of the people who do the mock interviews are not just employed to do mock interviews.
To kind of go down a rabbit hole, and this is this is where I will I'm expecting a lot of backlash for people, for me and my personal opinion on this, but those mock interviews were the content creators that were flown over there and decided to, excuse how I'm going to say this, kiss Microsoft's ass rather than being critical and tell them the truth. They were worried more about the fact that they wanted to brown nose Microsoft and not tell them what was really going on with the game. And they almost lured Microsoft into this false sense of, hey, we're this game's ready.
So that might be true, but I do know for a fact that there are people who are within Microsoft
there is companies that do that, but there is companies that do that. But the whole mock review process is to get the game in, whether it's a company's hands or someone else's hands, and they play the game, and then they answer a questionnaire at the end of that experience, and they describe their experience, and they give it a mock review based on that experience. And we know that there was a lot of people flown out to Austin to play Arcane.
See, here's the thing. I know that Microsoft employs people who do it, like internally, right? They internally have teams that do this. I believe it's secondary employment for their other titles, but they do have people internally who are paid to do this. There was a huge article about it 2 years ago about how they do mock interviews for games that are released from other companies too. A lot of companies do this as well. And there was a whole article about how they had done an internal one about The Last of Us 2. I'm not going to go into that, but I know that Microsoft has internal people that they have employed within the company to do.
Right, but
those people are the people who I'm going to tell you probably need to no longer be doing mock interviews.
That too, but the reason why I'm so critical of the situation with content creators is you keep saying it yourself. This game was not meant to be Dishonored and Prey. As a matter of fact, Arcane has not made a game on that level since Prey. If you actually look at the history of the games, since Prey was released, they released Dishonored. What is that? It was like a spinoff, Death of the Outsider.
Death of the Outsider. It's
right. So that was a very small scale version of Dishonored. A lot of people did not write home about that game. And then we got into Wolfenstein Youngblood.
Yeah,
that game came out.
They were co-developing that one. They were not the primaries on that. That was
the only game that Arcane Austin is made primarily under their own their own direction was Prey.
Yep.
That was the only, and that's what makes me laugh at. Everybody keeps, for starters, throwing Dishonored at it, and I'm like, dude, they were a support studio for Dishonored. They were not Dishonored. That came out of Arcane Leon, which was actually the lead group for that. And Austin, when they were bought in 2006, was designed to be a support studio. And that's when they asked to have the keys to the car to do Prey, and they let Prey be their baby. But since Prey came out, they went back to a little bit of a support studio. And we've gotten titles like we said, Death of the Outsider. We went into Wolfenstein Youngblood, and a lot of people had the funny
part
is
game's bad. That game's actually bad.
Right, and people said that they didn't like the gunplay in that game. There's some gunplay issues in Redfall. And then we got into another Wolfenstein game that was called Cyber Pilot, which was actually like a PS4 Windows exclusive.
That was the VR one, right?
Yeah, I think so. I never even heard of it until I started doing some research. And then after that, we got into Deathloop. Deathloop kind of was almost in the right direction, but there was
it was nominated for Game of the Year.
Right, but now that's where we also have to say, I'm the kind of person that says I have no problem saying that there is a bias that runs around in the industry. Was that game got critically acclaimed because it happened to be a PlayStation exclusive, like, I mean, there's a lot of things open to interpretation because even in Deathloop, there was people saying that there was AI issues and that this game didn't have as many enemy types and the
They
stuff
did have
that
a similar criticism on the AI.
Yeah.
Although
and
having
that's-
seen like full playthroughs of that game, I had not seen in gaming in recent times AI as dumb as what I've seen in several different playthroughs of Redfall's opening. Like I said, I haven't seen much past the first 4 hours. So if it gets better, it gets better.
I feel like Redfall, I don't know if they got like a small budget from, because let's face it, we all know what Jez Gordon said, and we know that Bethesda's been acting pretty autonomously.
Yep.
Like, dude, I believe that not only did the leaders that were in charge of ZeniMax before Xbox bought them gave Arcane Studios a very small budget because they were doing Deathloop and other titles. So the developers that were doing Redfall were given a very small budget, and they were like, well, we can't do cutscenes then on this budget. So now we're doing this slideshow kind of storyboard-esque style of storytelling, which I am not a fan of. I wish there was some cutscenes.
You know what's wild about that? Absolutely wild. We got like a 4-minute CGI cinematic to announce the game.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't line up at all. You know what I mean?
Now, is that because of Microsoft?
I don't know. And like, that bothers me, because if Microsoft is the one that commissioned that whole CGI thing, why were they not monitoring this entire situation? Like, how did they catch stuff too? Like, as Phil said, they caught, the issues too late, and they were brought in too late. How are they not, if they were putting that much money into marketing it, how are they not monitoring this better? Like, that's where, like, things don't add up for me.
Yeah. No, and sorry if I may, like, based on what you were saying, I can't believe, like, I was expecting to see some CJ, because everything they did during the last showcases was fantastic. So then when I actually launched the game, right, and then I see nothing but the comic book thing, I was like, okay, wait, hold on, that's not what I saw, I was promised something else, so that really threw me off. Another weird thing I thought about the PC port is, like, I'm glad it runs on my old gaming computer. I thought it was gonna, like, crash or, make my hardware burn or something. It didn't get really hot. But for some reason, the stupidest thing is, like, we tried plugging in an Xbox controller, and it didn't really have full support. I thought it was just me. I tried a different controller. I Googled it. Apparently, it has connection issues. You cannot really properly use an Xbox controller on the PC port. So we ended up playing with mouse and keyboard. And I don't get that. And sorry, now that you... What
version of Windows were you using?
10.
10? Okay. Then, because I know 7, if you were using an older PC, I know 7 has some issues with Xbox controllers. But that's interesting that it's having that's a mess.
Yeah. And based on what you were saying off of Borderlands, you remind me of something that I read on Twitter. I try to kind of like feel bad a little, but honestly I ended up cracking up. Someone said that Redfall felt like this was Borderlands at home.
Yeah. I know my friend, my roommate who's upstairs right now, he watched the coverage of Charlie with me, because I was watching it to prepare for this, and he was watching it with me, and he goes, man, this makes me just want to go back and re-download Borderlands 2 and play it instead.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Go ahead. I'm having fun with us all interjecting here. I think this is a much better way to cover this topic.
Right, and that's where I'm wanting to, because I see like what's going on in the chat. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. What's up, Invader? Like he says, hit that like button. I see we are not doom and glooming Redfall.
Yeah.
I am actually here to say that I have put like 16 hours in that game, and I'm not going to sit and say that the game is absolutely awesome, but I'm also going to say it's not a shit show either. But that's where I want to get to Shockley, because Shockley has yet to play the game. He has been absorbing a lot of reviews and statements that are coming throughout content creators and media sites. So I'm kind of curious on what Shockley thinks about this whole situation, on like, because apparently, like, at least what I got from, you're still on the fence on, do you want to play Redfall or not?
Yeah, like from some of the early stuff we saw in it, like I think when they did the showcase, it looked interesting, and I've enjoyed the Dishonored games. Obviously this was a different team, or somewhat, so I was definitely hopeful in it, and some of the animations and the guns do look pretty good, and that's what some people have actually said that are critical of Xbox, like Solid Rev, who doesn't cut Xbox any slack. Like, he's obviously a fan of the platform, but he usually is very honest and critical when you feel like they should get some criticism. That was one thing he said he did enjoy was the gunplay, like the actual like weight and like the, I guess like the punchiness of like the gun, some of the cool death animations, which were cool, like spectacle wise. That's one of the things that looked kind of good about it. So I was definitely interested in that. But then when I saw some of the animations where it was just like going down steps, like I'm playing Resident Evil Remake, and you know, you obviously it's your main character, but you go down steps and they step like they don't just like escalator down. So just some of that stuff, I'm like, well, obviously this is, and some of the proportions of the characters reminded me
Hands.
of Vice City, or just like the GTA remasters, which I have played those games, but that's just because of nostalgia. But there was only one part of it where it was on a mission where you and in Vice City, where you and dress up as cops and go to the mall and start doing a shooting. Well, the Lance character on one of them, his suit wasn't made, kind of like how you see the remasters like in Unreal, whatever, upscale. His shirt wasn't, and his head was just unproportioned to the rest of his body, and it just looked ridiculous. It was something like, that's what kind of reminded me of, like, this was just either some of the NPCs were just kind of like quickly upscaled, or quickly just like, hey, the proportions will let AI do this part, and well, if the AI doesn't messes up, oh well. Like, I don't understand how you would not spot that, but I mean, we'll see. Hopefully that's kind of like what this was. Hopefully this was like a smaller team. Obviously, excuse wise, it like they can't like let this happen, especially after. And I'm surprised, yeah, especially after a delay. But that's where it comes back to some of those mock reviews, where like they gotta just look at, obviously, since especially he was grilled hard on the Kind of Funny interview. I'm sure he's looking at it now like, okay, the people that did these mock reviews, we're gonna have to change something up, because, like he said, they were supposed to be like double digits higher on the reviews. I don't know how many double digits, whether there's 10, 20. But he was obviously, I'm sure, expecting something way higher. Or he's gonna probably say like, hey, well, see, he being a CEO and like doing what he does, he probably doesn't have the time to like take the finished product and play like 10 hours of it. And that's why and that's why you're like probably wondering like, how could this get out without him overseeing it? Obviously he's letting Bethesda do their own thing, do their whole own process. So and so far this is like the first stinker out of the Bethesda acquisition. I mean, if you think about it, like, they've hit Ghostwire Tokyo, it was a solid game. Same with Deathloop, had Game of the Year nominations, had like 10s from a lot of the major outlets. I think even IGN gave it a 10. And that definitely means something when like one of the biggest gaming outlets gives it that, just from like PR wise. So, and then you had Hi-Fi Rush to start the year, how it just dropped, and I think that was a 90, or maybe it dropped to 89, but still like a crazy high, great high score, which they probably even internally, when they saw that game, probably weren't even expecting that. So I get it, and it's not just one game, because obviously you go back to Microsoft's overall track record, not just the Bethesda studios that they've acquired, but that's where people are saying, hey, it's not just one game, because we're looking at Microsoft as a whole, not just the games that came from Bethesda. So they do have valid concerns and complaints. But yeah, it's kind of goes back to something I said a few weeks ago, where it's like, if Redfall was like the last game, and like Forza and Starfield was dropping here, and then Forza was coming out in September, and then Redfall like came out whenever late in the year, probably wouldn't be as bad, because you would have had like hopefully three straight bangers. And then Redfall, I'm like, oh, okay, they almost nailed it. But now it gives us doom of like, okay, Hi-Fi Rush wasn't, for all its positive ness around it, it's not like a triple A game. It's a AAA Switch game, probably, but it's to the standard of this, it's not what you have to be on the par of your closest competition, which is Sony. It's not a AAA Sony level game. So when you get to this, where you're like, okay, cool, what's this? This is going to be the first one, and now it's making us think, okay, what about Starfield? We know Turn 10's got it unlocked because all they've ever done was Spitfire. So whereas Bethesda has, under Todd's leadership, has released Fallout 76. So even though his main babies have all been bangers, some of his side stuff that he's kind of oversaw hasn't. So maybe I don't have wariness about Turn 10 and Forza Motorsport hitting it because they've had such a high quality and they've always done it every 2 years. Now you gave them time. I'm sure they're going to be okay, but it makes you think about like Bethesda and Starfield. Hey, is this going to hit, or is this going to be? Maybe it's way better than this Redfall was, but is it going to be like a high 70, like a 78? Even though that's not bad, like it can't be that. Like it has to be a high 80s, like at the very least 85, just like from a PR perspective, because otherwise people are just going to be like, hey, this isn't even up to this, snuff of Fallout 4. Fallout 4 was like a high 80s, I believe, Metacritic for even all the criticism that game got from fans. So it just, and because then it comes back like, oh, well, is it the Game Pass quality? Is it because of Xbox quality? Is it Xbox's management that's dropped the quality, or is it because of game? Is it because it's going to Game Pass and that's what's dropping the quality? It gives those stupid things that really I don't feel have any validity, but it does give those people more ammo to say that.
Well, yeah, it creates a bad brand image, even if it shouldn't. That's just how things are.
No, technically Sony does that because Sony saw Destruction All-Stars. Hey, it was a $70 game, and then they looked at it like, nah, it's not. And then I'm pretty sure it went to like. Didn't it go to PS Plus?
It went to PS Plus immediately, and you couldn't even buy it for the first 3 months.
Stuff right there.
Yeah.
Because technically Microsoft, all of their games go there. They literally said, hey, this is crap. We're throwing it to PS Plus. So technically, that's what Sony did. I'm just saying.
Well, they didn't even let you buy Destruction All-Stars during the time that it was on PS Plus. They then launched it after PS Plus for, I think, $30 instead of $70. So, like, at least they had the decency to know that they needed to change the price.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just that, like, Redfall has so many things surrounding it that, and it's not even totally its own fault that it's getting flamed as much as it is. Like I said, I don't even think the $70 price tag would have been as much screaming if it hadn't been the first one.
Yeah.
Right? It's the first one they chose to unveil their new price with. It's just like Square Enix getting a fuck ton of shit for Forspoken on PC because they were the first ones to dare put a $70 game on Steam. It wasn't the first one to launch at $70, but it was the first one listed at $70 on Steam.
And that's the other problem
one that would take your money for $70.
With Game Pass, they are giving some studios to release some stuff that maybe they wouldn't have. Maybe this wouldn't have got greenlit under a third party because they wouldn't had the, they didn't have a Game Pass to put it on, or they didn't have.
This game existed before Game Pass. This game was in development before Game Pass. Now, it is possible that this game would have been canceled if Game Pass hadn't existed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Grounded, ended up being, great, and it's, and it found its niche and found its players, but stuff like that, and that didn't turn out bad. But stuff like Bleeding Edge, we saw that some of that early footage. That game was also actually
in development before Microsoft bought them.
It was, but I think it was dormant for a bit until they got acquired. Because
they got acquired and they were like, "Hey, do you still want us to be developing this?" That's actually there was an interview about it.
So that's where I get that they're letting some of these passion projects go through, or just passion ideas of like, hey, let's not try something new on your first game coming out from the acquisition. How about you release a banger, then we'll let you do a side, passion project. That's what I feel like they should do now.
Obsidian was unique because Obsidian was like, hey, we have whatchamacallit, Outer Worlds. right? It wasn't published by Microsoft, but it did hit Game Pass day one. That's a really weird situation with Private Division and Microsoft with the Outer Worlds. But
Yeah.
they even got to prove themselves as something that was, and like Arcane did release Deathloop before this. It's just that like Arcane's in that weird situation where Leon and Austin are relatively separate.
And I think that was Arcane.
What?
Lion, right?
Arcane Leon was Deathloop, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
And,
like
they're largely separate. So like a lot of people
Tokyo,
like Arcane's
didn't they
releasing
make-
these bangers, and now they're releasing this not as good stuff because like that's the face value of it, right? Because when you buy a copy of Dishonored or Deathloop or Redfall or whatever, it just says Arcane on the front, right? It doesn't say Arcane Leon or Austin, and so that creates an image of, oh my god, they've ruined Arcane, when in reality it is two different studios at Arcane that act autonomously of each other. And like again, that's another thing where it creates this bad brand image where like, and this specifically would be for bad brand image for Arcane, where in reality it is really two distinct studios that do this stuff under the same name, and like that's not totally fair. Like I mean, it's okay for it to tarnish Austin's image, but it really shouldn't tarnish Leon's image. You know what I mean? And so there's all of these factors that are surrounding Redfall that's just going to get hated more than it probably should as its own game because of stuff out of its control.
So, just trying to, because I want to give Dots a chance to answer. Shout out to Carlos Alvarado, who gave us the $1.99 super chat. Redfall needs more work. I completed it in 20 hours. And this is actually in line with what you're saying, Crusader, is, we want criticism to take place on these studios and for it to be aimed at the correct studio. But at the same time, I don't want anybody to kind of like lie per se or shoehorn themselves into making the situation sound worse. Because this goes with Carlos Alvarado's super chat here. There is a very big game reviewer that I watched his video on it, and he said he completed the game in 12 hours. And now from listening to his statements and my personal experience, I know he twisted the truth, and basically he completed the first region in about 12 hours. And that's where I feel a certain way, because now I feel like this individual's reputation as a game reviewer is damaged in my eyes, because rather than being critical and giving the facts, he decided to choose to kind of like follow a narrative to kind of like obviously drive clicks to his channel. And that's where I just really do not like, I don't know how to feel. I feel like literally this game is getting a little bit too much hate because of stuff like that. But moving on, Dots, have you had the chance to try the game? What do you think about it? Is this your cup of tea or no?
I have not played the game. It had less to do with, following a hate train or anything. I have this strict personal mentality that I can really only commit myself to one type of genre of a game at a time. So looter shooters, I'm kind of devoted to Destiny. I can't really fit in 2 looter shooters at the same time in my schedule. So that's my reason for not playing it. I've watched the reviews. I've watched the gameplay. I've seen more than 3 people all have the same general clip of their experience with, I guess they're in a room and there's a singular vampire and they're just using the boxes.
Yeah, it's in the kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah. They're all just doing circles around this box and this vampire can't get to them because of, I guess, the AI. And it's like, I was thinking, wow, it's just a lot of people using the same footage. It's like, no, each of them's using their own gameplay footage and they're all dealing with the same problem. And I look at it, I'm just like, this is it's upsetting. It's a shame. I'm not gonna jump on a hate train and say that it's the worst game ever, because I've seen worse. I've seen so much worse. But it's not to the quality that we would expect for a game that has been hyped up and advertised and whatnot. I will say that I don't know. The one thing I did hear that I agree with is thank God for Game Pass, because Game Pass is so good that for opinionated bad games too, because now people who've played it and don't like it got to do so, quote unquote, for free, and then they don't have to play it anymore, and they don't have to go through the hassle of returning the game or anything. It's just like, cool, they played it, they don't like it, they stop playing it, they have Game Pass, they didn't pay anything, and they go play something else on Game Pass for free. And it's like, great, cool. And the people who want to continue to play it and dump more hours into it and play with their friends, and they seem to either overcoming the bugs or they don't care about them and they think the game's great, awesome, they got on Game Pass, cool. I don't think that this would have been worthy of a $70 title, but that's all, $70 titles are a whole different issue. And
that's very little. It's worth $70 in my opinion. Not that games can't be. I'm not against $70 games. I'm actually against uniform pricing for games. You and I have had that discussion at length. I know.
Yeah,
like you and I have.
I miss buying DS games for $40. I know the Switch is a different console, but that's I've dumped so many hours in like Pokemon fucking Ruby and
it's
Emerald.
Like them releasing DS level Pokemon games on Switch, and they're like, "Well, we'll charge $60 for it now because it's not a DS game."
Hot take. The DS. If they were launching DS level Pokemon games on the Switch, I wouldn't be bitching that Pokemon's broken.
Yeah, I agree. Oh my god. Yeah, not to go off on that tangent, but like, bro, old Pokemon games, man.
Oh, man.
That's why what, a copy of Soul Silver or Heart Gold these days, like what, $70?
Sealed in box, in box it's $130.
Wow.
Oh yeah, don't they also come with the Pokewalkers? Like that actually has other material in it. Yeah.
Oh, sealed it's like $400. In box it's like $130. I know because I just recently sold one.
I still have my copy of Soul Silver, so I got an investment. Anywho, not to go on a Nintendo tangent in an Xbox podcast, but that's my general take on it. Like, and nothing. You guys have pretty much covered all the bases that I could possibly think of. I have no desire to play. The game could have been great, like fantastic, 9 out of 10 material, no issues. I probably still wouldn't have played it. It just, I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea at the moment. So that's my take on that.
So one question for everyone. Where does this fall for you compared to Crackdown 3?
Crackdown 3 was and I didn't play and finish it because I was playing so many other things at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, and even like Weapon Wheel Podcast, BG or Broken Games HD made a good point. He was like, I played Crackdown 3 all the way through and beat it. He's like, I played an hour and a half of this game, and there's no way I'm going back and playing any more of it. So, like, Crackdown 3 wasn't, like, a bad game.
They have similar scores. They have similar Metacritic scores.
There is, which I don't even know why, other than they did hype up years before that whole multiplayer thing, or like the whole destruction ability that it had before, which looked awesome. I saw Destin Legary literally play it when he showed off that IGN quick look at it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is great," and it looked awesome. Unfortunately, half the dev, because it was like a co-development game, and half the dev got bought up by Epic, and then they took whatever ideas and what they were getting to work there and took, I guess, that with them, and that's where that kind of got scrapped. But at least when I played, I played like an hour or so of it. It felt like, a new version of Crackdown with newer graphics, and it was still kind of, hey, this is the Crackdown that you fell in love with before. So it wasn't, you knew what was the point of the game, you knew the fun part of the game, and it was kind of like when you get a new GTA. It's like, cool. Like when you got a new Vice City over, the GTA 3. You're like, there's some newer features or newer things that you can do that you couldn't do in GTA 3, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same. It kind of felt like that. Like, cool, here's a newer one with a newer story. You can do some cool stuff with it. But that was in a broken game where you're seeing like people literally like showing how it's a mess. Like the AI wasn't like dumb in that game. The AI would take your ass out, was aggressive, and wasn't super stupid. So I don't even know why that game got the score it did. So Same thing with probably like, you know, some of the PlayStation games got like terrible scores. Like I think not terrible, but I think Ghost of Tsushima got like a lower score than I would have guessed. I think that got like a lower 80s
Check it out for you right now, real quick. Give me a minute.
type score. I think yeah, well, from the most part, I don't know why that game got the score it got. I didn't play a lot of Recore. I know that got kind of a lowish score, but some people like that. So
I only asked Crackdown
Microsoft
3.
does get a little extra harshness, whatever, if you want to believe it or not. I feel like they do, because like that first Kirby game that came out on the Switch was probably the shallowest Kirby game ever freaking made, and it still got like in the 80s. And some of the reviewers that reviewed some of the Xbox games harshly reviewed literally that same Kirby game. And it's like, even this is more shallow than the $40 game that was on the Wii U, which I loved, Rainbow Curse. I really loved that one. But it was also $20 cheaper, and it had way more content than this, whatever that first one they released on the Switch was. So
yeah, the only reason I asked
they do get a little
Crackdown
pass
3.
sometimes.
The only reason I asked Crackdown 3 was Crackdown 3 is historically the Xbox game, right?
Well,
Like they haven't released anything. They haven't released anything that Metacritic down since then.
I'm a pro Phil guy, but he did make that comment. I want it, and I get it. He wanted it at the time. I wanted to sit there next to Halo and Gears.
Yeah.
And remember what Crackdown was. It was, hey, we're going to get you to buy this because you want to play Halo 3 beta. That's why we all bought it. Now, we all were pleasantly surprised on the 360 when we're like, oh, shit, this game's pretty fire. like it was a pretty sick game. They were like, okay, well, this is a win-win. But I don't know if that comment became before the whole studio the whole project got lost half of its dev. But because when they first showed that off, you're like, oh shit, you can destroy all this stuff. It looked sick from that first teaser they showed off of Crackdown 3. It looked fire. So I don't know when that comment he made came. So maybe that was before the whole shitstorm it went through. But
well,
and graphically, some of the effects look pretty sick. So I don't know.
Another shout out to Carlos Alvarado, another $1.99 super chat, wanting to point out that Redfall is currently number 12 on the Xbox top most played games. It's good to see that, a lot more people are playing it and that the narrative isn't exactly sticking to the game. Does anybody want to add anything else onto the Redfall subject?
I'll be interested to see how long it holds a high place.
Almost
everything that launches into Game Pass that's like a large title, like a AAA title, usually does jump up. I'll be interested to see how long it holds that.
I'm honestly thinking that we're probably also going to at least get some kind of event or something that's going to be around Halloween time. So I wouldn't be surprised if Redfall has a resurgence.
I hope that, maybe I'll give it a shot still when the 60 FPS patch comes out. But that'll be when I give it a shot. If I give it a shot.
Before we move on to the next subject, at least we'll cap this whole conversation off with, because I also see what's taking place in the chat, and that's where I feel about it. Like, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to borrow this from Dealer Gaming. At the end of the day, content creators are nothing more than an asshole with a microphone. Do not let anybody dictate to you what you should find fun or enjoy. You should always do what's in your heart for your own entertainment. And if playing Redfall or My Little Pony, Paw Patrol, we all make our jokes around here. But if that is your shtick of a game, don't you let anybody tell you different. So,
yeah, I'm an opinionated asshole with gigabit internet. That's why I'm on a podcast. I have opinions that I like to share, and evidently some people like to go back and forth with me and listen to me. I do not care if you enjoy the game or not. I care that you are having a good time, because I have a good time playing other games, right? It's not like people are always like, oh, Crusader, you must hate gaming because you're always so critical every week. No, I love gaming. It's just that I'm disappointed because if they had kept to what they said, I'd be happier. than I am right now. It's not that I'm not happy, right? And so don't ever let what I say make you unhappy. If you are enjoying the shit out of Redfall, continue to enjoy the shit out of Redfall.
See, that's everybody has their opinion. Yeah, there is some people that want to expect more for paying the price they do for a console, but at the end of the day, I'll just be upfront. I just forked out $1,500 for a QLED, and I'm already having backlight issues, and I'm gonna have to reach out to Samsung about that.
Oh, you bought a Samsung?
At the end, yeah, I'm a Samsung fan, but for me, I don't fall into the trap that, like there's always going to be quality in any industry. And that's where I just feel like things aren't made to the quality that they used to be back in the day. I mean, let's look at like refrigerators, for example. Everybody has a grandparent or a family member with a refrigerator from the freaking 70s or the 80s, but you can't go out and buy a brand new freaking TV. I mean, a brand new refrigerator with all this nice fancy equipment on it that lasts longer than like a hand. Like, I mean, you can't even count the years on one hand sometimes. I mean, you can count them on one hand, excuse me. So that's where I just really feel like that there is some serious quality issues in any industry. And that's where I really don't know what to say other than, so it's a really tragic situation that this narrative has definitely engulfed Xbox and is just added on to Phil Spencer's week, which will bring us into our next conversation. We saw an interview with Phil Spencer on Kinda Funny Games, and I'm not going to be over here saying that we saw a disheveled and burned out Phil Spencer. I'm going to say we saw a pissed off and aggravated Phil Spencer on Kinda Funny Games.
Yeah.
And he actually had a lot to say. The interview, in my opinion, was actually a great water cooler conversation, gave me a lot of good talking points and stuff to kind of simulate in my own mind. But we have also seen that once again, social media does what social media does best. And they have twisted and screwed things and have created narratives that don't exist. And so we're going to kick off this whole breakdown of the Phil Spencer interview on Kinda Funny Games. And we're going to start off with our other guest tonight, Dot. Did you catch the interview? What do you think?
I did not catch the interview, but I did read synopses on it. It seemed clear cut that, the things did not go as planned, but that doesn't mean that Microsoft and Xbox is going to go belly up. I think it adds some humanity to it, which is great because, acknowledging your failures is something that a lot of businesses are incapable of doing. And the fact that, Phil Spencer and Xbox is willing to do that, I think that shows, a human side to it, which is severely lacking in the game. Well, I won't even say the gaming industry, just industry in general. And that's one of the reasons I like the guy. I mean, I like that, admitting your mistakes and committing to improving them is so much better than dusting it under the rug and saying, point the finger at someone else, say, bam, it's their fault. And, and then moving on and trying to redirect. So, big props for that. Obviously talking, past, present, future things. This is not the worst scenario I think Xbox has ever dealt with. I still personally think that the failure of, in my opinion at least, the failure of Halo Infinite on launch was still a heavier hit than Redfall. I think Redfall was just more of a, oh man, we screwed up versus Halo Infinite. It's like, oh shit, we fucked up kind of scenario. Because obviously that's a very big IP difference, because Redfall, it's brand new. So if it fails, people either expect it to fail or it's like, oh no, it failed, versus something like Halo would be like that. This is unacceptable. This is, the biggest IP ever. So that kind of shows that, the fact that they're able to say, hey, we screwed up for something like Redfall is, great because, hey, that means that they're even willing to, acknowledge their smaller issues as well as their bigger issues. And once again, that is great that they're, being so human about it, being so, I mean, Phil Spencer is a customer of his own product. So of course, when things go wrong and he's like, oh man, this isn't what we intended, this wasn't in our vision, he takes that personally, I think. And so I think that's great that that he was willing to do that and, put a positive light and like, yes, we screwed up, but we're going to keep learning from this because the gaming industry is evolving constantly, even though, in my opinion, the quality of the games that are coming out have been deteriorating pretty substantially. So we'll have to obviously...
And I'm going to clarify that. I'm going to have you clarify that so chat doesn't go for your throat. You do mean the entire industry there, correct?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the entire gaming industry.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
just so chat
quality,
doesn't go for your throat.
It's whatever. The entire game. I feel like there's very few new games that have come out, with the prestige and glory that a lot of them have done back in the day. I mean, now, freaking, we can't forget, as you said before, Hi-Fi Rush, no advertisement, shadow dropped, fantastic game. I still haven't even played it, and I'm just looking every time I'll see it on my YouTube recommended just to watch, the cutscenes of the play or even just listen to the music, and I'm just like, bro, this game, fantastical. So like it's not like these companies are incapable. Is the worst part. They are not incapable of doing amazing things, and luckily, Xbox dropped that W. They dropped that win with Hi-Fi Rush. So in 2023, Xbox is capable of great things, and that means that they are capable of it more this year and further in the future. So there's no point that anyone can say Xbox is down for the count because Redfall failed of all things. I think the hit with Halo was a lot worse. So this is a bruise, not a deep cut, and they'll just heal it off. They'll, I'm sure they're getting to work on making it better, even though usually, unfortunately, once a game releases and people already declare they don't like it, they're not going to play it ever again. But that's gamers. So there's hope for the future, and the fact that they were able to say, hey, we screwed up, but we're going to improve. I believe that because they've done it before and they've improved. They have a failure. They say we're going to do better. They improve. Sure, another failure shows up, but that's just being human. All these games are being made by people. So it is what it is, and we'll just keep moving forward. And as gamers, we're going to keep playing games. And as gamers, we're going to continue to fail at playing games and then get better and better, and then fail again and then get better and better. So there's your analogies for the day.
So, at least to kind of go into the conversation and also talk about, like, again, I love watching the chat. Phil Spencer's statements are also geared to appease regulators right now. We cannot forget that they are going against the CMA in a very tricky appeals process that is not easy by any means. And they are not going to just come out and say that we're going to try to decimate the industry. So maybe some of his statements were geared towards trying to at least create some kind of narrative for that situation. But at the same time, I do have to agree that, last generation was the generation to win or lose, because that was the generation when buying games digitally was going to be a thing. And that's where everybody stuck their, flag in the sand, drew that line, and they picked where they were going to build the majority of their digital libraries, whether it was on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox. And at this point, you're not going to I've got over 400 games on my Xbox. I'm not going to just all of a sudden be like, screw it, going to PlayStation, or even PC for that matter. So that's where it's just like, it really stinks because there is consumers out there that are already heavily entrenched and ingrained on where they're going to be. The only thing that Xbox can do now is really try to attract new users to the ecosystem that haven't already picked where they're going to build those digital libraries, like new younger gamers. And it's going to be a very slow, grueling process. Moving on, what do you think, Shockley? Am I the only one?
If you're there, you're muted.
Shockley? All right, we'll come full circle to Shockley. How about you, Crusader? I know you caught the interview.
Oh yeah, I caught the interview, watched the whole thing. I thought it was excellent. And it has vindicated what I have been saying for almost, well, I've been saying it since 2016, but I've been saying it in a public forum on on like Twitter and on these podcasts, that Microsoft will not overtake PlayStation this generation in console sales. I've said that multiple times. I have said it because they have made it so that, one, you can get your, we can hear you now, yeah. We can get your, you can get your console, or you can get all your games on the PC, and you can get them all on cloud. So they already aren't going to have to sell as many consoles because they've put their stuff in more places. And number two, there is digital entrenchment. I own 300 games on my Xbox, so of course I'm going to focus on upgrading my Xbox Series X first. That doesn't include Game Pass. With Game Pass, I have access to like 800 games or something stupid. And so when you lost a generation 2-1, in some regions it's even 3-1. Even if Microsoft was outputting titles at an equal basis with Sony in terms of quality and just like overall like user wants, you're still probably going to get beat 2-1 because people are going to first upgrade their consoles and then maybe buy a second one. But traditionally, outside of handhelds, people only buy one home console. It's why Sega got absolutely rammed out of the race when PlayStation came on the scene, and it's why the GameCube absolutely suffered, and Nintendo had to switch up their entire strategy way back when with the Xbox. And was that Xbox and PS1, or was that PS2 and 360 with the GameCube? That was Xbox. That was the original Xbox and PS1, right? With the GameCube?
No, PS2, Xbox, and GameCube.
PS2, Xbox, GameCube. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and that's why Nintendo had to completely rebrand what their console was going to be and go in a totally different, weird motion-controlled direction. And it's going to lead to a situation where if Microsoft wants to survive, they have one of two options. Well, they have three options, technically. They could risk doing the same old thing and just trying to compete 1-1 and hope that they can get people to switch in a digitally entrenched world. That's doomed for failure. They're not going to do that. They can, two, attempt to double or triple their output in quantity and quality, which they're already struggling to match in present day. But they could try to triple their quantity and quality and try to just completely demolish and outcompete and drive the market completely towards them because of so much inescapable content. But then you really risk regulators in that case, especially a company the size of Microsoft. So they went with a third option, and the third option is cast a larger umbrella over the amount of customers you're going to hit. Phil Spencer did not say they aren't going to make in-demand games. He did not say that. In fact, Modern Vintage Gamer tweeted out that I don't think Microsoft needs to make good games to sell consoles. They just need to make good games. Mm-hmm. That is exactly what they are going to do. They want to make good games and sell those games over a wide variety of systems as a pseudo third party. They are not a full third party. They are not launching everything on PlayStation. They are not launching everything on Switch. They are launching things on Xbox consoles, they are launching things on PC, and they are launching things in the cloud. And they are going to try and hit as many people as they can. They're going to attract the amount of customers that they typically would have gotten in the 360 era without being reliant on the console. The console is there as a mechanism to deliver to people in the console zone who want the games. And the best part is, for all of you who are in disbelief that Phil Spencer could say such a thing, number one, it could be because of regulators. I really don't think so. I've been saying that this was their strategy for a long time. But number two, if he is wrong, and it will, just matching Sony will change the market and bring all of those people to them, and maybe miraculously we'll have over a 20% dual ownership with people. But you know, it will bring people over, you know, and that happens. Well, their model allows that because they have a console. Period. If they make the games, because they have to make good games in any of the three models for this to work. They have to make good, unmissable games. If they do, and it does totally bring everyone over the console from PlayStation, or at least causes a ton of dual ownership, well, then they've succeeded better in their model than they've predicted, right? The way that they have structured releasing their games does not preclude them from absolutely becoming the juggernaut in the console space that they were in the 360 era. They are just not relying on it, and they are not forecasting it. And that is fine, because they're already doing better than they ever were in the 360 era in terms of revenue and users and software sold and everything like that, and their new subscription model, and they've really changed things up for themselves. And this has been the structure of how gaming's actually been really since the 360 era, because in order for Nintendo to compete, they had to give up on trying to be the exact same as Xbox and PlayStation, and with the Wii went to weird motion controls. And then when they completely mismarketed the Wii U by making it seem like it was just an add-on for the Wii and not a standalone console, they rebranded themselves completely again with the Switch and have pushed themselves into the handheld market and made their own stake. Microsoft doesn't want to completely switch up the type of games that they are making, and merely they wish to change up how they are approaching customers, right? And there's been a whole lot of tweets about, oh, Microsoft might go third party, and they would if Game Pass was allowed to be everywhere. They will not until Game Pass is allowed to be everywhere, with some exceptions with things like Minecraft and Call of Duty. But Microsoft is in the game of hitting customers in the types of areas where they want to play, not necessarily in every area where they want to play. And I think that's something that Phil Spencer's words kind of they draw a line. But you know, if you want to play on console, they have a console for you, and they're going to deliver good quality product there. If you want to play on PC, they're going to deliver those same quality products to you on PC. And if you want to play in the cloud, they're going to do that. They have shifted their business strategy to account for digital entrenchment. And we've seen entrenchment all the time. You can't get people to switch to iPhone or Android. You can't just get them to switch on a dime, because they're entrenched in the ecosystem. They don't want to give up their app sales. They don't want to give up the ecosystem that they're used to using. It happens. This is something, and people are so stuck in their heads about it because y'all boomer gamers have been in gaming for forever, and you see it shift every console every time. You see people shift around all the time. That's not going to happen anymore because of the digital entrenchment. The only place it might happen in Nintendo, if they don't decide to be backwards compatible with their next Switch, but Nintendo still encapsulates a very unique, separate area of gaming that they've carved out for themselves. And so Phil is absolutely not saying they're not going to make quality games, and he's not saying that they can't even make up some of the ground in between Xbox and PlayStation. He's just saying that they're not expecting to be the top dog of consoles, and they're fine with that because, well, quite frankly, they're doing better now than they've ever been, even with all of the controversy surrounding them. So, like, it's a whole lot of nothing. And Phil, I want to comment on one other thing, and then I'll shut up about all this. But Phil did set some expectations, some pretty high expectations for this show coming up. He name-dropped Avowed and Hellblade alongside Starfield and Forza. That was really interesting. It's long been said that those are the next potential releases.
Some collections, too.
Yeah, and he said the word collections. Now, it's unclear if he was talking literal collections, like a Gears of War collection. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Please let it happen.
Yes.
Or if he's just talking like groups of games, right? And he's just using the word collection abstractly, which could be the case. He speaks very well, but when he's unprompted, he does sometimes use words that he shouldn't. But he also did reiterate their commitment to hitting launches every quarter. And I made a commitment myself on Twitter after he said that. And I made a commitment that if they hit quality launches 4 quarters in a row, or sooner if they double up quarters and don't skip any, like if they launch Forza and Starfield both in quarter 3, I said I would give $50 away to this chat if Phil Spencer keeps his words to celebrate, because I will be very happy. Now, he was on here prostrating himself about how, Redfall essentially not hitting the standards that fans wanted, and that you could tell that he was sad about it. And he was talking about how, like, he was very sad to disappoint the fans, and it's very hard to see the community being as disappointed as it is in general. But he had a decision where he could have waited for the showcase to speak big, but he spoke big here and said that he's going to hit those quarterly launches. So if they do those quarterly launches, I will give away $50 to this chat. And that's not because I don't believe he'll do it. I actually, the fact that he had the energy to make that commitment in that showcase is something else. We will be celebrating, and I will give away $50 to this chat for of an Xbox code to use $50 on the store. That is my commitment to you all. If he can keep his, I will keep that. That has been my soapbox.
Yeah.
All right. I was going to say, yeah, we'll get back to Shockley now because we missed you last time. What's your whole input on this whole interview with Phil Spencer?
Yeah, I appreciate him. And this was already a booked interview with Kind of Funny. They just kind of lucked out getting him on after all this. So they kind of had the first crack at him. But no, I appreciate his honesty. For some reason, people were like upset of him giving a defeatist mentality, and I'm like, that he had said this stuff publicly. I'm like, whether he said it or not, they kind of said that out loud 7 years ago when they said, "Hey, we're no longer going to tell you how many consoles we've sold," and you don't even need to buy an Xbox. Don't worry about buying an Xbox to play our games if you don't want to. So they kind of already said that, and that they weren't going to try to compete straight up. So people that were like, "Oh, this is just defeatist," and I'm like, well, they kind of already did that a while back. But yeah, some people were kind of going on about like, "Oh, look what Nintendo did. You know how they turned things around. That's all it takes." Or like PS3, look what they did. They dug themselves out of a hole. Although we kind of get from like all of the magazines, the Electronic Gaming Monthlies that like have the tomato on the PS3, we kind of, when you look at it back then, some of the perception of some of us gamers were looking at the PS3 like it was like really struggling. But when you actually align their launches, they were equal with 360 for the first 14 months pace. And after 14 months, they were ahead of the 360 the entire way out. So at no point were they like really digging themselves out of a hole. They were just a year behind. So yeah, when you looked at, and they did get beat in North America, obviously. So NPDs at 360 was always like ahead when you'd hear the NPDs back then. But console sales, yeah, they were ahead, but that was only because they had a year head start. It wasn't near as dire. Yeah, sure, they just got they got brought down to reality. Is what they got humbled. But they weren't like the Xbox One versus the PS4. Stop. So at no point were they in that dire straits. And then when you look at Nintendo, because people were saying about all you need is great games. That's what Sony and Nintendo do. Like, no, that doesn't always work. If you just make like he just said, if you make great games, what people also missed was he said it will change the console share. It will shift the console share in a dramatic way. People completely missed that whole thing he said. It wasn't saying, hey, we were not going to sell more consoles, which some articles, some big YouTubers
ran with that. Like, he didn't say he wasn't going to sell more consoles. Of course, they're going to move more consoles. It's not going to change the percentage of the actual console share, like the physical box of how many of those are sold specifically in a dramatic way. It's not. Because Sony, like he pointed out, Sony's not going to stop making quality. You have upcoming Spider-Man. They have lockdown third-party deals that are easier for them to get, because if Microsoft tries to lock down Final Fantasy, that's going to be a little bit harder to pull off, because Square knows that, well, if we do that, people in Japan don't have Xboxes, which they could play it on PC, but still, you know, how are they going to play Final Fantasy? So, like, it's going to be harder for them to pull that off. But going back to Nintendo, look at the N64. Great, groundbreaking games. What happened? They got demolished. Great games didn't matter. It was the only place to really play multiplayer stuff, like, for, you know, more than 2 people. And then you had the GameCube. Best first year, launch year, look at it, of exclusives Nintendo console has ever had. Blows the Switch year 1 out of the water. Switch year 1 was actually kind of like not that great. Sure, you had Breath of the Wild, but that wasn't even exclusive. And then you had what? Mario Kart, and then Splatoon and Mario Odyssey at the end of the year. That's, if you go back and look at the GameCube, they even had Metroid Prime technically within the first year. And they had a bunch of other stuff, Resident Evil, Smash Brothers, a bunch of new IP, like 5 different new IP. So, and what happened there? They got demolished and sold even less, sold less than the newcomer of the OG Xbox, which people were laughing at, even trying to compete with Sony and Nintendo before it launched. And then what happened with the Wii? The Wii, yeah, if you go back and look at that, I was there buying the console on day 1. It wasn't selling out in the first couple weeks. Why? Because old people and all these families that fell in love with Wii Sports didn't know about it until people took it over for the holidays. Oh shit, this is pretty cool. And then that's when families and grandparents and retirement homes started buying the damn thing, and that's where it took off. But had that would have been a disaster. Probably another follow-up disaster of the GameCube. It was basically a GameCube with motion controls, like from a technical perspective. It was technically supposed to be an add-on for the GameCube, but that was lightning in a bottle. That wasn't going to be ever replicated by them. And so they had to completely transform and do something. Now, unfortunately, they couldn't figure out how to, where to go from there. And then the Wii U, they went back to making great games again. And sure, there were some drier spells there, and they got some 30 parties back on board because they had been burning those bridges as they went along. Third parties gave them a shot, Arkham City and some of these other games, but no one bought them because people had already abandoned. Gamers had already knew that they can't count on Nintendo consoles to buy their third party games. So those games didn't sell. So third parties left in a heartbeat. And then what was Nintendo left with? They were showing off Breath of the Wild in 2014. It looked amazing. It didn't matter. They had Game of the Year nominees with 3D World, with Mario 3D World. It didn't matter. So had they just launched Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey with whatever you want to call their next console, if it wasn't them completely consolidating their handheld market, which was still popular, that was the transformative, that was the difference maker. It wasn't just the games. The games helped, but that wasn't what got third parties and people invested back into the platform. It was the handheld part of it, something I can play third-party AAA games. I can play Nintendo AAA games on the go. I've never been able to do that before. It's completely different. So that was their whole transformative thing that got people buying. It wasn't just the great games. They could not compete with Xbox and PlayStation with a traditional console. They would have been in third place and not dramatically shifted that console share in their direction. So even they had to do it. So sorry, I got long-winded on that. That's the part he was trying to get at. They had to go in a different direction here. They have to with cloud, PC. From that whole basis, they're going to get enough funding and revenue. They're going to generate that from getting that whole umbrella. They're not going to worry about, hey, are we going to beat you out in the console space? They don't have, in this short time, they got to make those shifts now. They're not going to just wait. Maybe in 20 years, we'll pull things out and we'll be able to fight back against the Sony beast. No, they're not doing that. They're going to get revenue much quicker by doing what they're doing. So people saying that, hey, I think that gaming.biz article was saying that games, to them, good games aren't a priority. Well, then they need to be fired and get out. I'm like, nowhere did they say this. That good games aren't a priority.
Bad article. That was a bad article.
And Christopher, is it Dring or Ding? He
Chris
came out.
Dring
he
even called it out.
Yeah, because I was like, because I know he does a lot of their articles from that website. So I was surprised. I was like, well, at least it wasn't him, because I know he's usually on point.
Well, and he wouldn't have written something like that either.
You're putting words in their mouth. They didn't even say that. Like, don't try to figure out what Phil meant. Read what he said. It's not hard. He didn't say a cryptic message. He literally just said words that mean things. Read it. I don't understand. Or that good games won't help. Yeah, good games. They didn't say good games won't help. Sure, they'll help sell more consoles. And that's what they're going to do. And that's why their commitment to consoles are, because that's where they're going to get their revenue. That, he said, is at our core of our strategy. I don't know. That's where I wanted to attack, because that was really the only controversial part, apparently, that most people had with it. But otherwise, everything else totally addressed the issues they deemed to be better. So I think at this point, that's what a lot of us wanted to see, was him just address that, like, hey, like, we need to fix this. We just want to make sure he's on top of stuff, or at least like, hey, we're trying to bring this to your attention. This can't happen again. And that kind of felt like you could kind of see it on him. So hopefully that's what happens with Starfield, and Starfield is as we thought Redfall was. Hopefully Starfield is like that one shining star where okay, cool, now we can, this is a banger, cool, now we got this out of the way, now we can at least give you some hope that this is going to be what it's going to be going forward with Bethesda games, or their other Microsoft Studio games. So, but I'll let somebody else jump in. But that's what I wanted to get up, or go over and address, because some of that stuff I saw was just ridiculous dribble all over Twitter and articles and YouTubers. So
before I get over to D for his opinion, is it wrong that I was like, I never saw Redfall as being a potential AAA banger?
No, I don't think a lot of people did.
I just didn't expect it to be what it is.
Yeah, agreed.
I think I've even said before on the show, I expected it to be like a good average AAA game, and it really isn't. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking something on the lines of, I know they said it was more Far Cry-ish, but Borderlands 3, I wouldn't say that was like a banger, but it's a quality, good game title. So that's worth AAA quality. So, but I wouldn't say it's on the level of like Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah,
from a blockbuster point of view, if you want to, I don't know. But you can see those games are a little bit. That's why I was kind of putting in that camp of like.
Honestly, I was expecting it to be like not the same gameplay but the same like general expectations as like what I've seen from Dishonored, because I watched my friends play it all the time in college.
Yeah,
that's what I was expecting.
I don't need to see pores on people's face, but you need to have needs to be a quality looking game, and needs to go back, play Dishonored. Just the whole gameplay loop of that game is, sick. That's what makes you want to replay it, because you can do all sorts of different things. If you play it the 10th time, you can have completely different experience.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something I was expecting it to be more of like a Returnal, like a solid, this game exists, it's good. It's not great, it's good.
I don't know. Like I said, I still have that whole opinion of like I said, everybody brings up Dishonored. Arcane Austin had nothing really big to do
then fine.
with
I
that.
expected it to be like Prey.
And that's where
you want the
there was times I would walk through those hallways and pray, and there was some eerie silence in those hallways. I didn't have like this hustle and bustle of the creatures. And the funny part is for me is outside of the people here, I have a hard time finding anybody that played Prey before Redfall came out, and then all of a sudden Redfall comes out and everybody's a connoisseur of Prey. And I'm just like, well, where the hell were you guys at when I played Prey? I had like nobody to discuss this game.
I played it last year.
Prey was a mixed bag. I know like Jez is a huge fan of it, but when it dropped, it was kind of a mixed bag of whether people liked it or not. Because I think a lot of people saw that first image of Prey, what Prey 2 was going to be, like from the original Prey from the 360, and that looked cool as shit. Whether or not that would have like ended up being great, their original vision before, I think it was, I forget the studio they got scrapped.
Well, and I don't expect any game to ever be bad, right? Like, unless like I look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is bad. Like, I never looked at anything put out from Redfall until that IGN walkthrough and was like, yeah, I expect this to be bad, right? It's very rare that I watch a game that's ever at like any major showcase and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be terrible, unless it's some very, very strange indie game. Like Goodbye Volcano High, if anyone's ever heard of that. It keeps showing up at Sony showcases. Like, I guess in terms of like what I expected an equivalent game, it plays totally different, but like my expectations for its quality would have been something like Wolfenstein: The New Order. If you want something from a totally different dev.
No, it's interesting.
The general quality of Wolfenstein: New Order. Wolfenstein: New Order is not an excellent game. It's a good game. It's fun.
I just think it's like Shockley kind of hit on a good idea there, that Prey, the game that came out in 2017 came out to lukewarm reception because it was not like the original Prey. And now we've got Redfall coming out to extremely lukewarm reception with extreme criticism because it's not like Prey and Dishonored. It's like it's basically, that's where in the interview they touched on it in the interview, that literally one of the guys doing the interview even brought it up with Phil, that literally when a developer or a publisher goes out of their way to try to craft a new experience, you run into the problem that if the game is a success, it's awesome. But if the game isn't a success, it actually hurts both the industry and the consumer at the end of the day, because now you're going to have developers and publishers that are not willing to be as innovative or willing to break the mold because of, we wanted it to be like this.
Okay, but number one, when they showed the first gameplay of Redfall last year, they directly said that it'll have all of the great arcane immersive sims that you are used to, just in a new type of game. So like, number one, they set the expectations that it would play similarly to their old games themselves.
But that was ignoring everything from everybody for some reason sees 2017 backwards. They don't see 2017 forwards. And that's where you see the difference in the title direction. If you actually look at it objectively based on what was offered before 2017 and what was offered after 2017.
But Redfall in 2022 was said to have all of the great immersive sim goodness of what you'd come to expect in an arcane game, but in a new type of game. And it did not have that.
But that's where where
like,
that's an open-ended statement.
Sold it as that.
As an open, but they didn't say as Dishonored or as Prey. You got to remember, they made other games after those two, so that like that's keeping to the same line and logic of what they're already doing.
That were immersive sims. Because I'm gonna tell you, they weren't talking about Wolfenstein Youngblood when they said all the great immersive sim goodness you've come to expect from Arcane, because it's not an immersive sim. That's like saying that I'd expect things from Halo Wars in a 343 title. I don't, because it's a different genre. I wouldn't expect concepts from it to be in the FPSs, right? And so they did definitely market things about this game that did not come to fruition.
See, I never saw where they said it was going to be like a sim. I just saw the idea of like, following on like
they said it was going to be like, we wanted to take a new take on like an open world style game with all of the great arcane immersive sim stuff that you've come to love. I believe that was almost the exact phrasing that was used in the first showing of it last year in 2022 at the showcase.
Well, before we hog onto the microphones too much, let's get D in here so that way we can get his opinion on it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, definitely. I'm glad he was honest, and you could tell, like you said, he was aggravated. He was a little angry, mostly angry at the situation of himself because he cares. He's not one of those like Centurion was saying that one of those boomer suits that don't understand gaming, right? They just see numbers and make me money. I don't care how, without me having knowledge about gaming. That's not it. He actually games. He cares. He's the bridge between us two gamers and the people upstairs who probably tell the division what to do. I don't know. So you can see that he wants to try and do better because he cares. It sounded legit. I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty, like transparency. It's key first and foremost. I think like also they were saying earlier, it's about the humanity. This is a humbling experience. Everyone keeps saying about, oh, this is remember the generation when the Wii U was horrible, and then they came back with the Switch. This could be something like that, because the one who actually did something similar was Iwata before he passed away. He went out, he apologized, he promised to do better. And honestly, I think, like everyone likes a good redemption arc. So I guess like Phil is really willing to do this. And don't get me wrong, like they'll talk crap about him so much right now for what's going on in the last couple of years. But honestly, if you compare the situation before he took over for Don Metric, he has a little wins under his belt. He's got a lot of achievements. Like it was hard to pick up the company and try to turn it around from the mess that the other guy made, at the beginning of the Xbox One generation. It's hard to, turn the ship around. But someone he's made a lot of right moves. So, like he got a little under his plate. He could do a little better, but honestly, he's not wrong. I don't understand that people celebrating this and hoping for Xbox to fail because that affects all gamers, whether they want to, believe it or not. I don't understand people asking for his head. I think he's doing well, and honestly, he can do better. I'm rooting for the guy. Hope he's just in there. I saw him at XO. Same with XO18. Same with what's his name? Major Nelson. They're all really cool people, and seem like they're legit, that they care. So I think they will turn it around. It's again trial and error, because like what Gary said, even Phil said, hey, I think I'm gonna borrow this from you. The quote is like, those little failures are not there to discourage you and be like, I'm throwing at the towel. I'm never doing this again. But those little things that didn't work out are there to teach you what not to do next time or what to change, and they're part of like how do you get into finally being successful. Because being honest, in the industry, they've only been around for what, almost 22 years. So that's still the new kid on the block, and they've already gotten so much right. So I think things will go well. Looking forward to the showcase next month. I actually signed up for FanFest. I hope I get the tickets because apparently Major Nurse will be there again. They're gonna have a party, and hopefully like cool things will come out of there. I don't know, like I the one thing that I guess you're right, a lot of people are taking these quotes out of context because, like you said, they had to rephrase some of the things you said because of what the regulators are looking for or something, but also because when you're on the spot like that and you're aggravated and you're angry and you've had like 2 really bad weeks, of course you're not going to be yourself, right? So probably a lot of things you said in the heat of the moment are not going to come out the way you want to. So that's why I kind of want to take certain quotes with a grain of salt. But honestly, like even if like you said, just because like I can have Starfield and everything from that point on come out to be an 11, it's not going to make you sell a PlayStation. It's like, you're right, you may not get rid of whatever your main console or PC might be, but in the digital era, if assuming we're actually going to hit a point in which all consoles die and we're going to do nothing but cloud gaming, etc., the biggest currency right now is engagement, is people's time. Because as Centurion was saying before we started, the show, why would you want to keep a subscription if they only have one show you like, or like you renew it for a month, the show you were looking for comes back, you binge it, and it's game over. It's like that doesn't really speak well of your product or your subscription. So as Centurion said, with a bigger umbrella that now covers a lot of people, whether you have an actual gaming box or not, this is a great opportunity to turn things around. Because yes, you may not take console sales from Sony or whatever, from Nintendo. I mean, it doesn't matter, because most of the hardware sells at a loss, right? What brings in the money is the subscriptions and the digital games. So it's like, what would you rather have? Like if let's say I'm on all systems, and I have to pick, okay, I only have 2 hours to play after work, and my options are Half-Life on PC, Horizon on PlayStation, and Zelda on Nintendo. What do I want to do? Don't you want to have like a game that goes like, what? I'm gonna put those on the side. I'm gonna let those collect a little dust, because today it's all about like that brand new Xbox game that everyone's talking about, right? And it's not just like, when you think of Xbox, people say like, oh, there's Master Chief, there's Marcus Phoenix, there's Ori, there's characters like that. But don't you want to have like more good games added to that? And again, they don't all have to be 100% bangers. Hitters, that could be, like Centurion said, like somewhere in between. I can just okay game, kind of like I guess what he was saying. He made a comparison to Returnal. You want to have more games like that, because some of old school people will always want to have a box, right? And Xbox is not going to stop making consoles, at least for a while, until everyone goes away with consoles. I guess we're still going to have a box in our setup, because we want to like sit down and have the couch experience and all that, and shoot the breeze with our friends. But if people who are not interested in that, if they're especially younger generations who play more on the go, etc., like, we already have so much in the ecosystem. Like, honestly, I don't. If look, and Nintendo's like go sideways, they don't have anything else, because they already went from selling cards and toys and all that into gaming. So that's all they have right now. If they were to fail, that's it. There are no other products under the brand, right? Same with Sony. Sony, honestly, right now is riding on the PlayStation success, because already they were not doing great with other divisions. They have music, movies, electronics, etc., but they're honestly overpriced, and the quality hasn't been the same, like Centurion said. So Sony would be affected if suddenly PlayStation, starts kind of like, I wouldn't say failing, but yeah, definitely, like, there will be a huge impact. Microsoft could exist without Xbox, right? They have all the things going on for them, but do we really want to spend like live in a world like that? Competition is better for everyone, because like all these systems may not be on the same boat, but they're definitely on the same water. One thing that affects the industry will determine what the three of them do, or the direction that gaming takes in general. So it's like, I like the option of having variety, because like I said, well, whether I don't care how many 10 out of 10 games each platform has, not everyone's going to be out there to play Zelda or Horizon or Elden Ring. Like, if it's not your cup of tea, you're probably going to be happier with a 7.5, 8 Metacritic game that's more your genre, than all of these great masterpieces that don't really have what you like in a game. So it's like, I like that we have options, that there are still studios being supported to make risks. And with the option, like, again, if you don't want to buy an Xbox, as long as you don't want to play on your Samsung TV or your tablet, etc., if you put in a game that makes you want to try it, that's like you were saying earlier, not just keeping the customers you already have, but bringing new ones in. I see a lot of disappointment on Twitter. Some people saying like, oh, I'm just gonna like switch, or maybe just not renew Game Pass. Like, that's not what you want. Like, retainment, engagement, it's very important. So you suddenly want more people on board to want to give you money to try your experiences, and not give the other guys your time of day. Then I think that's important, and Xbox can totally do it, especially because now you can pick up any device, sync your controller, Bluetooth controller, with anything, a laptop on the go, your phone, whatever, and it could cover more of that market. Because I mean, you could make some profit off of selling like Ori on the Switch, but wouldn't you rather have someone buy the digital copy off of Xbox? I don't know. I think hopefully we'll see something better coming next year. I felt for him when I saw what he said, but I know his position's in the right place, his heart's in the right place. I'm sure they're probably gonna put more care into what they do. They're probably gonna revamp the whole QA division or something. And I don't know. I'm a little skeptical right now. I'm still like rooting for Redfall and all of the games to do well, but again, we have nothing to see until next until the next showcase. So, but for now, like I appreciated the honesty. I really want Xbox to do well. I think it's better for us to have options, and yeah, again, I think it's worth a little twisted, right? He was on the rapid fire, so I get it. You can't make full sentences, like completely taking your time and saying what you wanted to. So I see what he's being taken out of context, and even have other outlets like Turtle One saying completely said that say stuff that he didn't even mention, right? Like that's just outrageous. But I don't know. Like we discussed earlier, some of these games were already in development before the whole purchase went through. But I think now that everyone's on their house, it's under control, we're gonna see those heavy hitters, right? Because Xbox hasn't really had a game be nominated for Game of the Year that they have made in-house, right? Like, yes, you have Deathloop, but that's something that you got out of an acquisition, right? You don't have anything, a Game of the Year from, let's say, 343 or the Coalition, etc. But, I think that with the changes of what they're doing now, learning from this, we're going to both see more quality product out of both those old studios, in-house studios, first-party stuff, and also the stuff that they acquire, And we can go back to those positive vibes that I checked out when I was, hanging out at XOAT, when everything seemed so positive and there were nothing but cool announcements and brighter things. It can come back to that. And again, yes, you don't really have to compete with Sony or Nintendo, but out of sight, out of mind, you still want to be alive. You still want people to pick up your games and think of you. Because without it, honestly, why are you in the industry? You don't see restaurants going like, oh, I'm going to be the third best, for burgers. I'm not going to take it out on other people who go eat somewhere else, or cars, right? So you're just not going to be like, our cars will be okay, but if you buy a German one, hey, no holding that against you. Like, I get it. It's like, no, you want to make yourself, relevant. Like, competition is good. And I think this would be best opportunity to turn things around. Because a lot of people are thinking about the 360 days fondly, because not only were they good first-party games, but also third-party games that were exclusives. I don't like what Sony's doing right now. What really screwed Microsoft at the beginning of the Xbox One era is that they were starting to go into some areas that were, not right for the brand, like the whole let's make TV and entertainment, and having horrible practices that were not very consumer friendly. That's what Sony's doing right now. I really don't like what they're doing. Microsoft's doing it better, but they're just not getting enough attention because, again, it's probably all in the IPs and also the bad press. Like the internet really doesn't help. But the good stuff is here. They just need a little, more care into what they do next, and people will still be excited. Honestly, like I do want to keep saying in the platform and saying things about it, because seriously, like it's there are certain games that made me want to like keep my Xbox One. Before they came out, they said, hey, we have these games. We're getting Tomb Raider a year in advance. We're getting Scalebound, which, I was so bummed out it disappeared. I wish it would still develop and pick it back up. I love everything that Platinum does. They promised Cuphead, which was a great exclusive. They also talked a lot about Cyberpunk. No one else mentioned Cyberpunk but Xbox. So honestly, between me being excited for the next Forza and Halo 5 and Gears 4 and 5 and all of those things, plus a mix of third-party stuff that they were throwing out there that was going to be only on that platform, they made me, want to go out and buy my Xbox One right away. And now as people, selling, they're like, oh, I regret buying my console because they don't have such a thing. It's like, you can have the best of both worlds, and they already kind of do. But it makes more exposure, and also, just make people want to pick up your thing. Because if they try it on your own, like they were saying, like actually pick up the game for yourself and don't rely so much on influencers and whatever, I think they'll see the value that the brand brings to the table, and have more people come back around here, right? Not just retain current Xbox gamers, but also have more people spend more time with your ecosystem. For once, just put aside their Nintendo or PlayStation, because that would be good. Sorry, I went on too long for that one. That's just my 2 cents.
You're good.
Oh, no, it's good, man.
Well,
we love hearing everybody's opinion around here. Huh, Crusader?
Oh, my God. I love hearing opinions. I love giving opinions. I love hearing them.
See, that's the only thing is, like, they're just opinions. They're not what some try to push as factor or wannabe industry standards. It's just an opinion. Anybody else want to add on to the whole situation with Phil Spencer's interview, or
There was one thing I forgot from that interview that I would like to mention.
Sure.
Evidently, Age 2 did excellently on console.
Like Age of Empire.
Yeah, Age of Empires 2, evidently. He was talking
yeah.
about, he was like, everyone talks about Hi-Fi Rush and how well Hi-Fi Rush did. And he's like, it's well-deserved. But, like, no one talks about, like, later that month we dropped Age 2, and Age 2 actually did even better, like, beat out our expectations even better than Hi-Fi Rush beat out our expectations.
See, like,
So, like, evidently Age 2 did phenomenal on console.
see me, if I wanted to add anything, it would be like, I like how everybody talks about, you know, Phil Spencer needs to do this, Phil Spencer needs to do that. So I do not stand behind the idea of like Phil Spencer needs to be fired. I enjoyed the fact that Phil Spencer came out and took all these issues head on. He doesn't just sit around in a corporate office somewhere and give quotes to GameIndustry.biz and other websites and basically hides behind news articles. He gets out and does live interviews and takes these issues head on. And I also enjoyed that he came out and basically said that there is something he will not do. And that is force a developer to only craft one style of game that they are good at. He will not stifle innovation. He will not prohibit the concept of a game studio being able to go out and have a passion project or work on something that is outside of the breadth of games that they are familiar with. And that is one of the things I love about Xbox and Phil Spencer, because they are going to keep that idea of gaming alive, where we know with other brands, they have a more formulaic way of approach to creating games and what they want to be delivered in their games. And we can even see some of these brands actually starting to close down first-party studios that were more dedicated towards these single-player innovative experiences to now chase the bandwagon of games as a service and multiplayer-esque games. And that's like, I mean, like, I just really feel like the market is completely oversaturated with games as a service.
Yes.
And I just really do not like the approach that, you know, one brand in particular is wanting to just chase revenue rather than chasing the passionate consumers that fork out their hard-earned money to play on that ecosystem.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to add on top of that, you're right. The competition definitely did. I don't know why, but just because in their mind certain studios underperform, they shut them down, and other studios are like, well, you know, like your game didn't do as well as we expected. We're not shutting you down because you already have have a lot going on. You have a lot of projects that, you know, we don't want to cancel, but certain sequels or certain things are gone. Like somebody was talking about like Days Gone earlier, even though it fell in the reviews. There are a lot of like passionate fans out there, you know. It has some critical acclaim with the community, but Sony is more focused on, you know, the revenue. So like, I don't care if people actually want to buy the second game because, you know what, like it's out. So then suddenly the Concrete Genius studio died, Japan studios die, you know, a Japanese company shutting down their studios, sending everything to the West. That was super weird to me. And then now this thing where certain studios are like, yeah, just do what I want. Not what the fans want. At least I got to give Xbox credit because they are basing everything on fan feedback, and that's really switching things around. I love when company hears me. That makes me want to like throw more money at them. You know, that I vote with my wallet. If I listen to, I'll keep coming back. If I don't, honestly, like my loyalty will go elsewhere. So I got to give them credit there.
Anybody got anything else to add on? Crusader, anybody?
I don't have anything for this, but did you guys see the showcase? Like we got the exact times and everything for the showcase?
I've seen here and there, but generally I don't get into showcase mode until because like literally the rumor mill freaking starts printing off so much generic meat gristle. It's absolutely not right.
Yeah, well, the only reason I bring it up is every year Xbox themes their showcase. They theme the key art for the showcase. Last year it was literally just a field of stars for Starfield. The year before it was half Spartans for Halo Infinite and half literally the planet from the original Starfield trailer. This year it's just like a green particle effect. And I'm really interested to see what it means because it kind of looks like the Avowed trailer, the original Avowed trailer.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the only reason I even bought into any of that is because Phil straight up mentioned Avowed in name dropped it in that interview. Also with Hellblade, did you guys see that there was a marketing ad for Xbox released a few days ago? It was just like one of those generic a bunch of games in the marketing ad, but like literally every game was a 2023 title except for Hellblade, which was really weird. Otherwise, it just it was really weird that like it was all these games that most of them have either released or will be released by like September, and then Hellblade. So those were two just little interesting tidbits of Microsoft is ramping up marketing for more than just what they showed off last year at the very least.
I have high hopes that Microsoft is going to change their marketing direction, especially with the situation of how Redfall turned out. And I just, again, I feel bad in saying this because I know, like, I'm an Xbox content creator, but I just really do feel that, you know, Sony does a good job in marketing. Why? Because they control a good portion of the narrative of the games that they put out, and they don't allow the public content creator community to really dictate the direction of that marketing narrative, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, at least they've already started changing how they do their shows, you know. They were these like lengthy, wordy shows that no one really cared about. They were like, hey, more games, you know, more trailers, focus on that. And they started been doing that, you know. It sucks that they kind of have to copy the directs, but if it works, you know, hey, at least they're making a change there, so that's good news, I guess.
The Dev Direct was excellent. That was probably the most well-structured Xbox show they've had.
I like both last summer's and the one from Tokyo Game Show. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think that developer direct is so hilarious on how everybody loves that developer direct when literally that is the formula that ZeniMax has used year after year for the ESO event that takes place at the end of every January. And that's where I'm just like, well, at least the Xbox was listening and ZeniMax was like, well, what if we do this? Because this is what we do. And it turned out very well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be real. ZeniMax marketing for Redfall is meh at minimum that game came out to be. Has been much better than just about any marketing Microsoft's done in the last like 3 years. Like the subway stairs being painted with the logo, and I have a feeling that a lot more people actually heard about Redfall, which is also a problem with how interesting it turned out. But Bethesda's marketing is actually very good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. They're very, very, very good at marketing. And Todd Howard and Pete Hines are very good showmen.
It just works.
It just works.
A lot of people forget we got a big game expansion coming out in June for a Bethesda title.
True.
Yeah, that's the ESO. They're adding like the first new class in forever.
The last class that they came out with was the Necromancer a few years ago in Elder Scrolls Online. But there's always been that expand. But that's where like this hasn't been a perfect situation in Elder Scrolls Online. The last, like, what was it? It was the last expansion that revolved around like the ocean map expansion. They introduced some kind of card game to Elder Scrolls Online that was kind of like them trying to go down the road of like how Gwent works in oh my God, what's the name of it? The Witcher.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be upfront. There was really no substance there to get players to play this card game. There was like no cosmetic stuff associated with it. There was nothing really. It was just a game that was there. And so that's where they got a lot of fan feedback over at ZeniMax on how they wanted to have things different for Elder Scrolls Online. And this is actually supposed to be a big year. A big direction shift for Elder Scrolls Online, because now we're supposed to get the expansion in June, but we're also supposed to see them deliver a lot more of that content earlier in the year, because they're wanting to spend like the last 3 to 4 months of 2023 actually revamping the game, doing some quality of life improvements. And I don't play in the PvP area of the game, but I know there's a lot of people that are hoping that they actually address some of the situations like the optimization and things that take place in the PvP area. Because when I have visited there, there's been times where you get some frame drops. But I don't count frames, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of, like, literally there will be times you'll get like 30, 40 people on the screen and it literally turns into like frame drop hell. And that's where also, like, there's people that are hoping that they address the situation, that it'd be nice that now Microsoft owns them, that they have these abilities to start migrating their save files to new platforms like Destiny did, where you could actually, you know, where you could not cross, where you had cross save, where you could migrate to a new platform.
Yeah, the saves with Destiny are all held in the cloud, and you can link all your platforms together, and you pick one as your primary, and you just move over to the platform. Dots and I both moved to PC when Shadowkeep came out, and they dropped that. You know, I moved back to Xbox when they released the Series X because I got tired of cheaters and Crucible, but
couldn't be me. Stop playing Crucible.
Lamau. But like, you know, that's great, and we finally got crossplay. That was Witch Queen, right? Crossplay was Witch Queen. Dots. Yeah. It would be really cool to see if they could invest in crossplay for ESO too.
Yes.
Especially Xbox and PC, but really the game is everywhere. It should just be full crossplay. Period. Yeah. It's an MMO.
Honestly, I love that the infrastructure's there because, not gonna lie, we already know what happened with Stadia, and I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna trust the digital future to Amazon. Like, I haven't tried Luna, but I may not even do it. I don't have to because I already have everything on the cloud thanks to Xbox. Like, it's already part of my subscription. I don't have to pay extra. And I don't know. I don't like what Amazon's doing with some of their games. Like, some of them came out of the gate and flopped. I tried Lost Ark last year. It wasn't my cup of tea. I don't like what they're doing there with Twitch. And if Sony had it their way, there would be no such thing as crossplay. So, you know, I'm glad at least Microsoft and Nintendo fought on that front, you know, to bring us all together. And definitely, like, even if they don't want to admit it, like, a lot of the Sony infrastructure runs on certain parts of Azure, like Microsoft Azure. So it's like they do need it, and you know, I'm happy I can pick up my games anywhere, fire them up. My achievements are there, my progress is there, whether it's installed or not. I like that. So if I'm gonna trust someone with cloud saves and a digital world that, you know, services that Nintendo or Sony don't offer so far for me, it's definitely what's, you know, within containing the Microsoft infrastructure. That's a good point.
Yeah. Also, calling it right now, ESO is going to be at the showcase this summer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed.
Mm-hmm. It's got content coming out, and a lot of people don't realize this about ESO, and I feel like I got to say it every time we talk about it because it makes Centurion happy, and it's just true. The game sells really well. It has not left Steam's top 100 since it released. It's been 432 weeks in the top 100 games on Steam in revenue.
If you go back and look at the data on that game, on the revenue of ZeniMax on Elder Scrolls Online, and you see that, like when you see the growth in revenue and how the studio has actually grown in size to support the development of ESO, you that right there, you're like, okay, yeah, this is a successful game title because there has been a lot of growth in revenue. They've hired on a lot of people, and like, yeah, I never thought in 100 years I'd be sucked into an MMO like ESO, but here I am.
There are only 2 games on Steam that have been in, and this is global. I'm doing global numbers. There's only 2 games on Steam that have been in the top 100 longer than ESO. Anyone want to take a stab at what they are? It's GTA 5 by 1 week.
Wow.
So 433, and CS:GO at 560.
No way.
It's been in the top 100 longer than both PUBG and Dota.
I believe that. I wish it would have put that kind of love on the that much care on the latest Quake game. I was disappointed on how it came out. I still enjoyed it, but it was not the same. But I swear, if they supported,
was that
you know, took it a little and put it on console, it would do well. Like Quake Champions.
Which Quake game was that?
What?
Oh, Quake Champions. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's a good game. It has potential, but, you know, just needed more attention. That's all.
All right. Has anybody else got anything to add before we close this thing out?
That was everything I had noted for the week.
Dots, Shockley, D, anybody?
All good, man.
All good. Yep.
All right. Well, let's start closing this thing out. Starting with tonight's main guest. Thank you, D, for being here. Where can we find you at?
Thank you, guys. I used to be on Mixer, not anymore, but you can find me on my YouTube channel and same on Twitter as You Fall Before Me. Right now, I haven't really released a lot of content because, due to personal stuff, but you'll definitely see me talking games in all platforms, mostly on Twitter, and I hope to come back to make more videos and all that and other, social media. But if you want to play with me or something, same handle, You Fall Before Me everywhere. And thanks again, guys, for having me so much. I had fun tonight. This was awesome.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
And another thanks goes out to our good friend Dots. We shot up the bat signal and he answered. Thank you for being here, sir. And tell us where everybody can find you at.
Yeah, thank you for having me on short notice, Crusader. We're gonna freaking talk later. No, I last minute or not, I always love talking to you guys. And if same place as usual, I'm on Dots RTS on Twitter, Chaos Dots or us on Xbox, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk to you guys. RTS news on the horizon. I can taste it. But yeah, no, always happy to be here. Good stuff today.
So, Dots, that's how it rolls around here. You're just standing there minding your own business, waiting for takeout, and then a white van with TXR written on the side of it pulls up and just sucks you in, and you're gone.
Listen, this motherfucker has shown up in my house unexpected. He's called me and been like, "Hey, can I come over? Hey, can I come over?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'm doing some work, but you can come over." And he walks out of my kitchen.
His mom let me in.
So you joke about people just showing up. You joke about people just showing up. This man has shown up to my house all of my life at random times.
My greatest accomplishment was getting his mom to let me in
high school.
And he's on a Discord call with friends, and I sneak into the basement where he's at, and I hide in the darkest corner, and I start playing Dancing Queen by ABBA, and he thinks it's on the Discord call, and then he turns around and I'm standing directly behind it.
I thought he had. I thought he was pranking me in Discord, and he wasn't there. And I turned around, and he's like, "I scream! There's this big man behind me." It was like the WWE meme.
That's funny.
Oh, God,
See,
good stuff.
Dots, if I was there and I was walking out of the kitchen, I would have had a sandwich in my hand and been like, "What are you talking about? I've been here for a while. I even had time to make a sandwich." All right. Shockley, thank you for being here tonight, man. Always great conversation as usual. Where can we all find you at?
Yeah, as always, you can find me at ShockNero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. But yeah, good show tonight. Thanks for the guests for filling in. But yeah, thanks for stopping by.
And last but not least, Mr. Crusader, our favorite Garrus friend. Where can we all find you at? Thank you for being here. Definitely great conversation.
Yeah, this was a good show. I had a lot of fun. This is probably the most fun I've had in a show in a long time.
It's because you got a crazy man at the helm.
I got a crazy man at the helm, and I got to talk real positive about an interview I real liked. So, you can find me at Crusader3456 on Twitter, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, Epic Game Store, Ubisoft. It's the same username everywhere. And good show. Great talking to everyone. And catch you on the flip one. Remember, hold me that giveaway. We're going to celebrate when Phil Spencer keeps his word this year.
$50 hype.
$50 hype.
So if he doesn't follow through that, are you gonna just go AWOL and be like, "I'm giving away a $50 PlayStation card"?
Listen, Dots will. Oh no! So here's the thing: it'll reset. It'll reset. The $50 stands until he does it.
You're gonna have like a $50 bill freaking thumbtacked to your wall forever.
The $50 challenge stands until they hit the quarterly cycle that they keep reiterating and not doing.
I love Xbox to death, but I'm always one to poke fun and have dark humor. Those Xbox codes are good for about 30 years. Are we gonna put that to the test?
I'm not buying the code until it's time.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining the circus show that I was in control of tonight. I am your ringleader, Centurion 1307. For those interested in finding me, you can find me at Centurion 1307 on YouTube, Xbox Live, and of course Twitter. You can also find me here every Sunday night, and 2 hours before the start of this show, you can also find me on Gaming Beyond the Box. Thank you to everybody tuning in. Thank you to everybody being in the chat. Thank you for everybody that tunes in after the fact. You can also find us on other services like Rumble. Please find us there. And until next time, everybody, you have yourselves a good night. And thanks for joining us.
Bye, everyone.